Welcome to part two, which is all about creating that presentation from scratch. A blank presentation, but you are going to make it amazing because you have the right structure and you're going to implement all the design principles that I'm sharing with you today and create a brilliant, amazing, visually stunning presentation. If you're ready, let's jump right into what we're going to do. So the first thing that even before we jump into creating the presentation that I would love for you to remember is it's not about jamming a lot on your presentation. It's about keeping it extremely minimal because at the end of the day, remember two things. Less is more, absolutely, and also that it's a visual aid. It's an aid. It's not your content itself. It's like your table of contents. It is not you. It should not replace you. I'm going to reiterate this point, which is why we are going to look at designing a presentation in a way that is just going to be an additional aid and not replace the entire thing that you're going to say with whatever is on the screen. All right, so that's what we are going to learn to implement today, beginning with the first thing, which is choosing the right template. Now, a lot of us might be using Google Slides or Microsoft PowerPoint or Canva to create our presentations. But whatever tool it is that you're using to create presentations, it's important to start with the right template. When I mean right template, is to choose a template that is going to work best to showcase the outcome, showcase what quality that you want your presentation. Is it a formal presentation? Is it for children? Is it for something that's supposed to be more casual, more fun? Or is it something that's going to be extremely professional, like an investor kind of a pitch? So, based on what you want to be able to showcase, you need to choose the right template based on that, the role that it has to play. The thing that you need to know is how to use the template effectively. Now, it's great to choose an amazing template, but if that template doesn't really work for you, then that's a problem as well. So learn to choose a right template when it comes to slides, PowerPoint, or Canva. Now, for all of those who are working professionals, you might not really have a say in the template because the company usually provides a branded template that you're supposed to follow in terms of colors, fonts, background images, how each and every slide is supposed to look, etc., and so on and so forth. So, what you need to do in that case is go through that template very clearly, know it inside and out, know what is it that you're allowed to use so that you can make the best use of that. And for those who need to choose templates, ensure that you are choosing templates with the right thing in mind. You don't want to use colors that are going to not work for the right kind of context and the situation. So choose carefully. And if you're a business owner or if you work for yourself, then you have your choice of colors. You might have a brand palette. You can stick to that, but you can also choose templates that work best with what your brand is trying to convey. Now, keeping this in mind, you choose the right template. When I say template, a usual template pack has beginner slides, cover slides, title slides, end slides, divider slides, and then your basic slides. Even designs in terms of how the graphs are supposed to look, in terms of how how you can put the text in certain places and the images in certain places. So this is going to be the template pack. You can definitely take a look at this and learn your template inside out. Now, however, if you want to create your own template pack, you can do that as well, which is what I usually prefer to do now as a business owner. So what I do is I create a template pack of everything that I like in the right kind of font, in the right kind of design slides that I want, and the colors and everything, and put them together and keep it ready to use. So when I have a presentation, I can just pick the slides that work with what is the content that I have decided is going to go on a slide, which is where your structure comes into the place. When you have a clear structure, it is easy to say, okay, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slides. This slide needs 2 pieces of information. This slide needs this. An image will do a really great job here. Maybe I should use a video here instead of an image. So you will start identifying what is it that needs to go on each and every slide. Now, with that, we are done talking about the template or your base for your presentation. Next, we move into understanding certain design principles. 4 design elements that are very, very important when it comes to presentation. First is our fonts, then our colors, then elements that we are using, and then finally the spacing. Very, very important to understand that we keep our presentations minimal. A lot of times people generally are worried, like, oh my god, my presentation is like, I have so many slides. It's not about the number of slides. When people ask me how many slides should I create, I tell them it's not about the number of slides. It's about how much information you have to convey and how many slides do you need to convey that information in the most effective manner. and you use fonts, colors, elements, and spacing in the right way to put this across. Having the right kind of fonts is important based on, again, the situation. The colors, it's all about how you don't use too many contrasting colors that might turn people off, and use the kind of colors that will work with people effectively. Next is using the right kind of elements and not using one kind of element here and one kind of element there, and therefore it is not very consistent across your presentation. That also doesn't help. For example, I have a blob on one slide and then I have a square on the other. Mismatch of elements doesn't really help. And finally, spacing. White space is of key importance. Just because there's a lot of space, please don't jam it with unnecessary images or text or this and that, and or add like a background uh, color or design to it. The more simpler it is, it makes for a huge difference. And the presentations that have been visually stunning and have attracted you, trust me, it's because of the fact that they use negative space wisely. The next thing that we need to understand is, if you're going to be using images, use high quality images. Do not use blurred, pixelated images that are not clear to see. You're just cropped off a very bad image from Google search and then you're just putting it into your presentation. Trust me, doesn't always help. So go for high quality images and videos. It's the same with videos. Instead of embedding a video, maybe you can add a link to the video and then open up YouTube or something to show the video. If you think there could be a technical issue, then what you can do is then embed, but ensure that you embed a high quality video inside. All right, so use whatever it is that you require, but use high quality. The next thing that you need to remember, there are two types of text on this slide. Which one is more easier for you to read? Obviously, the one on the, well, right, left, I don't know which one it is for you, but this side, right? The reason why this side is more easy to read is because it's short, it's memorable, it's not very heavy, and it's not a basic bullet list that is pretty much there on every presentation. There's a short story here. In a lot of companies that I worked previously, training presentations where they are teaching you how to create presentations, there are bullet points in which they write, don't use bullet points in presentations. Now, I can't tell you how ironic that is. Well, this is what I say. Practice what you preach. Essentially, if you are telling people to avoid using bullet lists, then you avoid using bullet lists. So bullet lists are very basic. We try to jam a lot of information. Instead, you can go for a simpler, better way of doing this. In PowerPoint, there is something called Smart Art. Even in Google Slides, you have an option to put your text in a better, visually better way. And I will definitely show what that aspect is for you. But learn to not overload text on your screen. It is always better to keep it very minimal, keep it very short. All right. The next thing, we spoke about data in our last part, and now that you know what is the data that you need to showcase, then learn to show the data, visualize it using the relevant charts and graphs. Don't use a bar graph where a pie graph is required, or vice versa. Learn to use the right kind of chart to depict the information better. Is there a better way to depict your information? Then go for it. See what is the best possible way to showcase your data, which is going to create the right kind of impact, and ensure that you choose the right one. When you're using graphs, when you're using just a graph with obviously to show how, what is a project doing, what are your forecasts, etc., and how the sales have been, etc., whatever it is, you need to understand that the audience doesn't want to be sitting and reading a chart when you're presenting. Then the attention is on the screen instead of listening to what you have to say. So what you need to do is call out the key points from that chart that you have mentioned. So first thing, is it better to use visual text in bigger numbers than a graph, or would it be better to use a combination of both? Is something that you will have to look at. But do not use just a graph. No one is going to be able to figure out. By the time they're figuring out what is on the x-axis, what is on the y-axis, it's already a lot of time. They're not listening to you, and they've probably disconnected with your entire speech, whatever you're saying, right? So it's better to have highlight boxes which points out to what is it that the graph is saying, instead of letting them sit and identify it for themselves. All right, so keep these things in mind when it comes to visualizing data. The next couple of important points, take off all unnecessary details. You don't need grid lines behind your by your bar graph. You don't need 100 different points or data points. Take everything off, keep it clean, only have the most important elements. Even if it is a graph, only have the most important elements. Use color intentionally. Just because you have an option to use a lot of color, please don't add a lot of color, because then what am I supposed to focus on? So add color wherever it is required to pinpoint what is it that you're trying to say. The next thing, don't use incorrect colors as well. Red is essentially something where we're saying something is going wrong, and if you're using red in a positive sense, then that can cause a mismatch in people's thinking. So it is always better to use the right kind of color to show the right kind of thing that you want to show. Then make it easy for them to notice. Like I said, small tiny graphs where nothing is clear isn't going to help anyone. So blow it up, have a good quality graph, and then highlight, draw the focus with color, with another call out box, and that's going to make a better difference. Add a CTA for the audience. What is it that they want, what you want them to take away from this data that you're presenting to them? And finally, use the right kind of words. Again, please do not write a paragraph of information from the graph itself. Keep it extremely short, and what is it that you want them to take away? The next thing, a 3 second rule. A 3 second rule is a good way to identify if your slide has too much information. What we are essentially saying is, while you are presenting and talking simultaneously, when your slide comes up, the audience should not look at your slide for more than 3 seconds. And in 3 seconds, they need to gather what they need to gather, and then their attention comes back right to you. That's the essence of it. If it's going to take them more than 3 seconds to even figure out what is happening on your slide, then there's way too much information. How do you do this effectively? Is by having one message per slide and six elements, that will not more than six elements to talk about that one message. So in this entire slide, we are talking about the 3 second rule. The 3 second rule says that you should only have one message per slide and not more than six elements to do the job. So if you look at this entire thing, the minute it comes up, it doesn't take more than 3 seconds for you to grab the message. And that's what each and every slide is supposed to do. Single message, and that messages should not have more than six elements. Elements includes text, images, videos, any other piece of graphics that you have on the screen. Everything included, not more than six elements, and all those elements should reiterate your main message. I hope that point was clear for you. Now, keeping in mind these design concepts, we are going to look at some last points that's going to help you take your designs to the next level. Use divider slides. Now, if you remember the structure, we had a core message and then we had 3 points, and those 3 points could have multiple points below them, ideally not more than three. So each of these sections, now you can start treating them as sections, and you can have a divider slide. A divider slide is maybe a plain slide with just the title of the slide, so people can differentiate from one section of your presentation to the next section. This is extremely useful when your presentations are a little longer, when anywhere more than 10-15 minutes. It's ideally best to have divider slides to tell people about the demarcation from one part to the other part. The next thing is a slide series. Now, whenever you're talking about a very complex flow chart or a process, the minute you put an extremely heavy picture in front of people, people are going to be like, oh, no way, I will not understand this. So I'm definitely not even going to try to understand this. So this is what happens. Your audience mentally just shuts off. So you don't want them to do that. Instead, what you do is you break the entire process into smaller parts. So you start small and then keep adding, and then finally when you show them the bigger picture, they're like, wow, this person did a brilliant job of explaining such a huge flowchart, and I understood it so well. That's how a small difference can make. So whenever it is technical, whenever it is high on technicality, always remember, you might have learned it in a certain way, but starting slow, building it up really helps. Next thing, avoid overuse of animation. Things flying in, circling, blurring, typewriter effect, noises, sounds. Avoid unnecessary animation. It only shows that it's a very childish presentation, and a very old school presentation format. So avoid any of these unnecessary graphic animations, etc., and so on and so forth. Keep it extremely simple. Instead, a way that I use, if you notice, I click and I have things come up on when I want them to come up. So you can actually use this method instead. They just appear on click. And this is a very safe method. This actually helps you because then you're only showing as much as you want to show to the people, and you're not giving them all the information so that they're not reading while you're speaking to them. The next thing is, we've already spoken about this, using high quality graphics, videos, etc. for your demos, tutorials, screen recordings. Whenever you're doing that, ensure that they are of good quality. Next thing, distracting backgrounds are a big no no, right? Color contrast, high contrast colors in the background are not going to be helpful. Now, we are right now mostly working in a virtual environment, but imagine if this is a live situation where the presentation is behind you in a big screen and it is in that very bright contrasting color. You're standing next to it and you're talking. Trust me, people are not going to be looking at you, they're not going to be listening at you, they're going to be looking at this high contrasting thing in front of them. So which is why, avoid distracting backgrounds, avoid unnecessary colors, ensure that your content is more in focus. Make your backgrounds as neutral, as less assuming as possible. And it doesn't mean you only use white or black, you can use any color like this particular slide. But remember, the focus is on the content and to not take away from you as a speaker. Finally, most important, this is one thing that can immediately your audience will notice, and then it changes a lot. Your flow is stuck, you realize people are able to see a mistake in the presentation, you are derailed because you saw a mistake on your presentation. So please ensure that once you're done finishing a presentation, you proofread for grammar, for inconsistencies in font and size, font size and colors. All of this, ensure that your spellings are right. Proofreading is of key importance. Don't make this mistake. And then we're going to look at a demo of how to use Google Slides, PowerPoint, and Canva. These are the three tools which I am going to take you through a quick way, and what are some good hacks that you can learn in each of these. And you don't have to look at all those three videos. You can actually choose the one that you use the most. If you use PowerPoint, you can watch just that demo. You can also ask me any questions on those demo videos, and I will get back to you. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you through some quick demos with a simple structure and how do you create a presentation very quickly using the structure that you created in part one, keeping in mind the design principles that we saw in part two, and then have a brilliant, visually stunning presentation. All right, with this, we are ending the second part of our entire course, which is creating a presentation. Now it's time for you to create. Keeping all these design principles, the concepts that I've shared with you, you can also watch the tutorial, but I will highly suggest that use the structure that you've created to come up and create a beautiful presentation. And if you would like, you can also share the presentation with me so that I can tell you how you can make it even more better. You have my email ID. All you need to send a presentation to me and I can tell you how to make it better. And you remember one thing, there's always scope for improvement. Look at your presentation and see, okay, what can I do better next time? Is there something else that I can try implementing next time? And that's going to make your presentations better day by day. With that, we are done. I will see you in the last segment of presentations, which is going to be delivering this presentation that you have created. So before you get there, design that presentation and send it across if you'd like for me to review it. Now I'm going to say bye, and I will see you in the next part.